This here's Capstone Software, founded in the mid-80s, who sadly went defunct in the mid-90s. You might know them from games such as Operation Body Count, utilizing the Wolfenstein 3D engine. They also licensed the Build engine, with which they made games such as William Shatner's Tech War in 95, Witchaven 2 in 96. There's also the relatively brilliant Corridor 7 using the Wolf engine in 94 as well. But today, we're gonna take a look at the Witchaven. And here you might think Frazetta's Death Dealer took a day off, but nope. It's actually... Is it Pete? Is it Jack? No, it's fucking Grundoval, painted by none other than the master Ken Kelly of Manowar fame himself. You can see the little blurb there saying that it's the D&D Doom, the cutting edge in 3D fantasy action adventure gaming. And it's something alright. And it also dares you to enter. I bet you don't dare to, bitch, but don't worry, I'll hold your hand the whole way through. In Witchaven, you step into the boots of Grundoval, a knight in service of his homeland of Stasia, been chosen by his master, Lord Vercaferon, for a mission to rid the world of the threat posed by the evil witch Ilverin. In her lair, known as the Realm of Witchaven, hidden in a massive subterranean maze under the forbidding Isle of Kar, Ilverin performs sinister rituals, seeking to lift a dimensional barrier known as the Veil that separates the game's universe from the chaotic nether reaches. Shall she succeed, she's granted access to unlimited dark powers to draw upon, to gather a vast horde of demonic minions to use as armies for conquest. Grundoval arrives at Kar by boat, armed only with a dagger. He needs to fight his way through the hordes of monsters, dwelling in a labyrinth of dark caves and dungeons, so that he might reach Ilverin's inner sanctum in time and put an end to her before it is too late. And so you boot up the game, you prepare your sword, your spellbook, you get your crystal ball at the ready, and once you hit a key, you're greeted by this ungodly racket. And so far so good, right? It certainly set the sword and sorcery theme right with its artwork, its background story, its banging tunes. Everything about it is coming up Millhouse. So, onto the gameplay. Sadly, the illusion is dispelled pretty quickly. It's serviceable when it comes to how it looks and feels, but sadly that's just it. The game is your standard fare for the time. You roam around through the levels, killing all the monsters you come across, with a few twists here and there. The green goblins, for example, they're terribly loath their particularly nasty set of palette-swapped beastie brothers, known as the brown goblins. Although I'm afraid that the surprises are few and far between, but they did manage to cram in the Capstone Surprise Special, which is the jump scare skull that pops up at random intervals with seemingly no trigger whatsoever, that is also present in Corridor 7. There's a good handful of ways to kill your enemies in Witchaven. There's your fists and daggers and swords, there's a flail, broadsword, there's an axe, a bow and arrows. I think there's also a throwing axe, a pike axe, and longswords and halberds. You can pick up a shield to act as a defensive tool, but as any of you fellow defenders of steel might know, sometimes you need a little more oomph in the form of spellcraft, which is where magic and potions come into play. There's potions ranging from curing poison, granting fire resistance, giving you health, invincibility, and supernatural strength. The spells, while some of them nifty, are largely lackluster. There's stuff like the night vision, there's magic arrows, freezing, scaring enemies, and something called a nuke. There's also a couple of nice little, almost innovations such as unlocking doors and flying, which allows you to kind of bypass some doors that you maybe find yourself stuck in as you haven't found the key yet. There's also a largely superficial level and EXP counter on the side, as you can see, which, as far as I know, only restricts the level of spells you can use, and you can of course gain experience by gathering artifacts and killing your enemies. And speaking of artifacts, there's actually a nice little handful of power-ups that you can come across. There's this Amulet of Shadows, which makes you invisible to enemies, and then there's this thing. What could this helmet be called? I don't know, it's flipping hero time apparently. I don't know what it does, but it makes you swing faster. As for the level design, it actually isn't half bad. It does its job. They look nice. There's a lot of gore and dungeon-y props here and there, and the aforementioned flight and open door spells help a lot with the more puzzle-oriented sections. Now the enemy variety, it's there alright. Sadly, if they do not have any sort of ranged attacks, they're easily cheesed with the usual hit them and back off strategy. However, if you do end up dying, you take a penalty in form of getting your levels reset to 1, which again restricts the rank of spells you can use, but this is easily circumvented by just saving and reloading now and then, but that's a whole other can of worms. Now besides scrolls, potions and armor, you might want to keep an eye out for your weapon durability, which isn't indicated anywhere on the screen until they're close to being broken. And it's a nifty little system on paper, but it ends up being a little immersion breaking when you realize that your sword starts to run out of durability when you swing a thin air. Now Capstone is as Capstone do, and knowing them, they license their engines to use for the games, and this one utilizes an early version of Ken Silverman's build engine, which does not have the feature of sloped ceilings and floors, which, after I read that one out, and I paid attention in the game, everything does end up looking a little blockier than it probably should be. All things considered, is it a bad game? Sadly, yeah, it kinda is. I mean, it looks and sounds and ostensibly everything about it is so goddamn right. I mean, I'm a sucker for dark fantasy and sword and sorcery type of fantasy adventures, but this one just... the execution of it just falls quite short. It doesn't grip me for more than an hour whenever I play it, and I've come to feel in a way that, to me, it's the best worst game I've ever played. Now, don't take it the bad way. I might not like the execution of the game, but the concept and the design around it's very much appealing to me. Sadly, the game did receive a fairly lukewarm reception and reviews, and although it seemed to be enough to actually warrant a development of a sequel that was released in 1996, which I should probably take a look at some point. Does the game have any sort of legacy then? Well, kind of. Witchaven's actually a pretty killer band that you should probably check out, and Techland, the Polish dev company who made Call of Juarez, Dead Island and Dying Light games, actually started working on something called Hell Raid, which was put on hold due to focusing on the post-release of Dying Light game, and Hell Raid was said to be something of a spiritual sequel or a follow-up to Witchaven and Hexen. I have not much else to say on Witchaven, so just keep your swords sharp, brothers. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!